Men, women, children, and pets all have one thing in common. They can feel pain. However, while the other three on this list are able to articulate their pain in terms of sharp pain, throbbing pain, or any other descriptive terms, dogs sadly cannot put it into words we can understand. They can, however, vocalize their pain. For domestic animals, dogs are perhaps the most vocal and in turn the best to communicate. They can growl, whimper, and whine to indicate that they need attention. But what would separate wanting attention from an emergency visit to the vet? These 10 signs. Today, we're telling you what it means when your dog has weeping or red eyes and why it's important to take them to the vet immediately, plus 9 other signs that all indicate emergency medical aid. Let's get started. Number 10. Weeping red eyes. When your pet looks up at you with those big, beautiful puppy dog eyes, it's hard not to get in the feels. However, when those eyes are bloodshot, then it'll probably give you a heart attack. Red eyes or weeping eyes are relatively common in pets, especially in dogs, and while they're not always signs of grave medical conditions, they require emergency medical attention. Red eyes are caused by several things: allergens, foreign objects, ulcers, dryness, hyperthyroidism, glaucoma, conjunctivitis, and corneal cancers. For every cause, the associated signs vary. In this case, red eyes might be common amongst the 8 conditions mentioned, but other signs might be different. For example, with foreign objects, your dog might feel restless and will constantly gnaw at its eyes with its paws or try to rub its head against objects to get the object out. In cancers, the condition often manifests itself with a painful and mobile swelling. Similarly, in hyperthyroidism, there's associated weight loss and hyperactivity. In any case, red weeping eyes should not go unnoticed. Persistent intraocular pressure, what we see in glaucoma, can lead to partial or complete blindness, if not alleviated immediately. 9. Unusual eating habits. Is it worrisome if your dog skips dinner? Maybe and maybe not. However, is it worrisome if your dog hasn't had a meal the entire day? Definitely. Changes in eating habits aren't limited to a lack of appetite. Sometimes they can also be concerning if your pet is eating more than it normally would. For example, in hyperactivity of the thyroid gland, your dog will have more of an appetite, but won't be gaining weight as one would expect. A lack of appetite could be a sign of something relatively harmless, like boredom, or grave, like cancer. If your pet has a growing mass in its esophagus, then it'll probably avoid anything that'll stimulate peristalsis. That is, the muscular movement of the gut. As a pet parent, your job isn't just to fill up your dog's food bowl every single day. It's also to pay attention to what they eat and how much of it they eat. Some unusual dietary habits are associated with vitamin and mineral deficiencies as well. While it's uncommon for dogs to develop iron deficiencies owing to their high-protein diets, it is not unheard of. A dog with an iron deficiency might develop a condition known as pica when they have an appetite for something that isn't inherently food. Number 8. Excessive thirst. What does it mean when your pet gouges at its water bowl? You might think it's owing to dehydration because of the sunny weather or because they've just had a good workout outside. Is it something to worry about? Sometimes, yes. If you're able to pinpoint the exact position why your pet is so thirsty, then there's probably nothing to worry about. However, if your pet is excessively thirsty all day and they aren't able to understand why, then there might be something going wrong inside of them. Polydipsia, a term used for excessive thirst, is one of the 3 main indicators of diabetes. Diabetes is a relatively common condition seen in many dogs, both old and young. And there are also certain kidney diseases which may manifest as polydipsia. Basically, your kidneys aren't able to retain an appropriate amount of salt, and you feel dehydrated as a result. Long-standing kidney disease can lead to kidney stones, and untreated or uncontrolled diabetes might lead to loss of limb function, blindness, and even death. Number 7. Vomiting. Contrary to what most believe, vomiting isn't an inherent sign of something sinister going on. Sure, you wouldn't want your pet to vomit, but that doesn't mean there's something gravely wrong with them. Then again, if your pet has vomited twice or thrice in the past 10 minutes, you need to call the vet immediately. Vomit with traces of blood, excessive vomiting, or vomit associated with other signs such as lethargy and annoyance are a sign of something going wrong inside your pet. For example, if your pet has a stomach ulcer, then it might start vomiting blood. If your pet has a cancerous mass anywhere in its alimentary canal, it probably will start vomiting blood. If your dog is excessively vomiting, that is twice or thrice in 10 minutes, then it might be trying to get something out of its gut that's lodged inside, or it might be as a result of excessive coughing if something's lodged inside of its windpipe. Number 6. Whimpering. Experts say that dogs, as do other domestic animals, only make sounds to mimic humans. They see us making sounds and in response try to mimic them, but only manage to imitate the tone of our voice in certain situations. For example, your dog can tell you speak in a higher pitch when you're excited and in a lower one when you're frustrated. All dog sounds are inherently designed to get your attention in one way or another. What happens when your dog comes up to you while whimpering? It could be nothing, or they could be in pain. How would you be able to tell the difference? First of all, examine your dog from head to toe. Are there any visible wounds or marks? Is your pet exhausted? Then move on to examine the situation. Are there other animals, humans, or pets that might have caused your dog any hurt? And lastly, grab your pet and take them to the vet. Some signs mean nothing and some mean everything. Number 5. Dragging itself. The joy of opposable thumbs is unfortunately something animals aren't aware of. When a dog needs something reached, it'll either gnaw at it with its paw or will rub up against other objects. But what if your dog has been dragging itself against objects a little too forcefully, or one time too many? Dogs tend to drag themselves along carpeting when they feel an itch they can't reach. However, if they've been dragging themselves along a carpet for a suspiciously long time, they might have an anal sac inflammation or they might have tics. In either case, you need to rush your pet to the vet. Number 4. Heavy panting. Panting is audible breathing, and while it's often harmless, your dog should never have to pant heavily to the point where it's exhausting itself. If a dog is panting, it's probably trying to reclaim some of the oxygen it lost while performing stertorous activity, playing, etc. But then, what if your pet doesn't stop panting? They might be overheated, dehydrated, and lethargic, and need emergency medical aid. Number 3. Growing mass. A growing mass is a tumor or a swelling. A swelling is seen in response to an inflammation, and a tumor could either be benign or malignant and is in response to cellular activity. How can you differentiate between the two? Swellings resolve in 3 days at most. They're often painful and are associated with itchiness and heat. Tumors do not resolve until intervened and are only associated with pain if they're benign. Malignant tumors are additionally immovable. If the growing mass hasn't reduced in size in 3 days, it's time to take your pet to the vet. Number 2. Pallor. Pallor is another word for loss of color. This is something most often seen when there is an excessive loss of blood, dehydration, or anxiety. An excessive loss of blood is noticeable, and dehydration can be visibly traced, but anxiety isn't that easy to detect. As a responsible pet parent, you need to identify when your dog is anxious and what exactly is causing it distress. Remember, just because your dog doesn't have the right words doesn't mean it isn't trying to tell you something. Number 1. Bowel movements. While it's not exactly the most glamorous thing in the world, you need to monitor your pet's bowel movements to be able to verify any issues. This includes, but it's not limited to, the number of times they defecate, the consistency of it, any traces of bile or blood in their poop, and whether or not they're whimpering when they're relieving themselves. Alright, do you think you'll know when your dog needs a vet most? Let us know in the comments below. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Inforama for more. We'll see you in the next one.